And we are live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. I'm your on-air host, Sara DiVello, and I'm so excited to welcome to tonight Veronica G. Henry, here to give us the inside scoop on her brand new book out tomorrow, The Foreign Exchange. Veronica, welcome to Mystery and Thriller Mavens. Tell us about this book.
Hey, Sara, thanks for having me. So, The Foreign Exchange is a book. Actually, it takes place a few months after the quarter storm, and we pick up with Mambo Reina, who's tried to get back to her healing practice, but finds herself embroiled in the center of another murder. So she goes about trying to figure out um, how the murder actually occurred, who was the whole whodunit, and actually solve a case that leads into sports, into college sports, into pro sports, and all that sort of thing.
Well, we got a lot to talk about today, and I can't wait to get into every single bit of it. First, I just want to welcome everyone who is watching with us. We are going live to 6 different destinations across Facebook and YouTube. So no matter where you're watching from, you're in the right place. It is the right time. It is Mystery Monday, and because Mondays can be murder, we're going to make them a little less painful for you. So every Monday, I give you my handpicked featured authors, and you get to ask them anything. So ask Veronica about her writing practice. Ask her about this book. Ask her about Mambo Reina. Ask her about anything you want. This voodoo priestess turned amateur detective. We got a lot to get into, so you can get your questions going in the comments, and I'll get them right over to her. Now, Veronica, I want to kick off with some of the praise that this book has earned. So let's talk. Let's kick off first with this review from Booklist. I'm going to pop it up here on the screen so we can all read it together. Booklist says, this engaging exploration of New Orleans and voodoo traditions is a delightful read. So first of all, congratulations on that praise.
Thank
and let's
you.
talk about your relationship to New Orleans and did you spend a lot of time there researching? Let's talk about New Orleans. Let's talk about voodoo. Let's talk about all the things.
All righty. Actually, I am not from New Orleans. I have visited New Orleans a grand total of one time, though I'm headed back this week. But what I did do is a crap ton of research. But during that one visit, I think if you can, as an author, if you have the opportunity to visit a place to do your research, there's nothing like it. Of course, we've got things like Google, and we've got video, we've got YouTube, all those things now that can actually give you a sense of time and place and all that. But visiting makes all the difference. So it's just visiting the place and looking at some of the locations that ended up being in the book, experiencing what they felt like, what they sounded like, smells, all that sort of thing, things that you can't necessarily get from pictures. So I visited once, and then combined that with a lot of research, talking to people, reading a lot of books, and again, kind of just combing the internet, combing other videos, so that I could understand. I mean, even printing out maps, right? So that I could understand the location again of where my character was going to be, where things were going to happen throughout the city. And that's kind of the fun part of doing the whole novel thing, is the research. But along those lines, similarly with the tradition, with voodoo or Vodou or Vodun, depending on where you sit in the world. Again, as we were talking about before, it's not something that I'm not initiated. I'm not a practitioner of the tradition, but I found it fascinating nonetheless. And that's always what leads an author down that rabbit hole. So I just, again, started doing research. I think I saw something on TV that I said, well, I'm pretty sure it's not like that. And in fact, almost everything that we see on TV kind of painted the tradition in a very negative light and kind of demonized it. So that thought in the back of my head, that thing that said, I bet you there's more to that story, that led me down the research rabbit hole. And again, everything that I uncovered about it, the people that I spoke to about it, kind of helped inform what you see in the book and what Mambo Reina practices as her tradition.
Well, I know I loved that because I didn't know very much about it. I've seen, like you, I'd seen a little bit on TV. It seemed, it seemed like what I was seeing. It just felt wrong. It felt like somebody was scared or something a while back and decided this is bad. This can't be good. But
Mhm.
but actually, it was so fascinating to learn about the elemental and connected to nature healing practices of it. So I loved that. Loved learning about that. Heather joining us live from YouTube saying, you must have just missed Mardi Gras. Have you ever been there during Mardi Gras, Veronica?
I have not been during Mardi Gras. It just didn't work out this year. So I'm going this week. Wish I had been able to go a week prior, but it's on my bucket list. I would say that.
New Orleans is on my bucket list because I like to eat, and
Yes.
there's some good eating in New Orleans. So I want to get down there and eat my way, get some crawfish etouffee, get
Oh,
myself
yeah.
some all that good eating.
That's why that was a big part of the book as well. You can't talk about New Orleans. You can't set a story in New Orleans without kind of delving into the whole culinary scene. So that was a lot of fun as well.
I love that. Do you like to cook, Veronica?
I do not.
You wouldn't know that from this book. Okay, so you like to eat then?
I do like to eat. I'm
Okay.
really a big fan of the eating part of it, the cooking, and I'm actually a really big fan of the cleanup part. I am a neat freak, so if there's some cleaning that needs to be done, I'm there.
Okay. We would work well as a team because I love to cook and I love to eat. I love to get. I've got a really good jambalaya recipe.
Oh,
So yeah. Tracy Clark, hey, award-winning author Ms. Tracy Clark, joining us live from YouTube. So good to see you pop up in the chat. She's saying, "Go Veronica! Yay,
thank you,
go
Tracy.
Veronica!" Now, Veronica, let's talk a little bit more about some of the amazing praise that this book has earned. Let me pop up another review. Publishers Weekly said that urban fantasy fans will be drawn in by, I'm going to pop this up so we can all read it, by the vibrant NOLA setting and the charming cast. So when you set out, did you intend to write a mystery? Did you intend to write a fantasy? Did you just intend to write a book and were kind of surprised how it was categorized? Tell us about that.
The interesting thing is I've written in the speculative fiction space for most of my career, but I have always had a deep, deep love for mysteries. I mean, back to reading Nancy Drew in Hardy Boys. So the fact that I would write a mystery at some point in my career was just like this foregone conclusion. So I got the idea for the first book actually from reading like a newspaper article in New Orleans, and it was about a murder that had taken place in the French Quarter. So the setup was perfect, right? I had the setup. All I had to do was come up with a character. So the fact that it would be sort of a mashup, a combination of mystery, thriller, fantasy, that was also a given, just based on the things that I'd written previously. But it was actually a heck of a lot tougher than I thought it was going to be. Writing a mystery period is a very difficult thing. And I hope one day to reach Tracy Clark's status as a mystery writer. If you have not, check out her work. She is an outstanding mystery writer. But studying other writers like Tracy and like Walter Mosley, there's so many, Yasmin Ango, there's so many people. So one of the first things that I did again was just kind of delve in, read all the mysteries that I could in the space that I wanted to write. And that kind of feature the characters that I wanted to emulate. And then kind of combine that with the work that I do in the fantasy space. And finding that balance between mystery, fantasy, thriller, that was the difficult part. You didn't want to weigh too heavily in either space. So that was the tough part. It's kind of walking that balance.
Ooh, interesting. Now, because I don't actually know, what is speculative fiction? What does that mean?
Speculative fiction is kind of like an umbrella term for things like a sci-fi, fantasy, horror. So that's kind of a term that encompasses all of that type of genre. And it's essentially that kind of look of, what if? What if the world were different? Or what if this aspect of this place or time were different than what we know exists in our current world?
Ooh, I love that. And first of all, I just want to say I totally resonate with being a Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys fan growing up. I Same thing. Nancy Drew, Hardy Boys reader, childhood reader here, and I'm sure that so many of us are. And it's so interesting to me that as a lifelong mystery fan, you first started off in this speculative fiction realm before segueing over, and found the mystery, as you said, challenging. What was most challenging for you?
Oh my gosh, it is just crafting the clues, the red herrings, tying those bits and pieces together, remembering the clue that you dropped in the third chapter, and how that's going to relate to what you're doing in chapter 10. So it was actually kind of a lot of back and forth. Now, I did write an outline, to be fair, only I veered so far off that outline. It just didn't, the final book looked nothing like it. So there's a lot of back and forth that has to take place, because you kind of, you outline, you set yourself up with the direction that you want to go. But as you start writing, you find that different things happen. The characters go in different directions. New characters emerge. So the clues that you wrote earlier may not necessarily apply to how you've written yourself into a corner later on.
God, I feel that on such a deep, visceral level, Veronica. I did not outline, and I'm the poor jerk who didn't, and I bitterly regret that. And everything that you just said resonates so deeply, because it's weaving it all through, and it's really, really, really tough. Alan saying, great authors you mentioned, Veronica. Have so enjoyed seeing both Tracy Clark and Walter Mosley on Sara's show. Tracy was just recently on with her latest book, right. Hyde. Fabulous police procedural. I've read all of Queen Clark's books. She's so talented and amazing, and I think Hyde is absolutely her best yet. And Mr. Mosley is returning to the show next Monday, everybody, with his latest Joe Oliver King book. And Joe King Oliver book. And he is, oh my God, it's so freaking good. And he's actually going to be in store on Tuesday, right in Texas. So cool. Incredibly talented. Yasmin Ongo has been on the show twice for her Nina Knight series. Incredibly talented writer there. Linda, welcome to the conversation, saying, I love New Orleans. It was a favorite vacation city for my family when I was growing up. It's in many ways stayed the same since our first visit in the 1950s. Such a unique city. I'm looking forward to reading the Foreign Exchange. And she'd like to know, do you feel at this point that New Orleans will be the setting for other stories that you'll write?
Very good question. And I certainly hope so. I have many more stories that I think I want to tell with Mambo Reina, kind of set in this place. I think the cast of characters that she has, the city itself lends itself to so many, different mysteries, so many different stories. It has such a rich history. So there's a lot to pull from there. And having written historical fiction before, and that was my first book, I love the idea of being able to include some of those elements, in a more urban setting and in a more urban story. So absolutely, I definitely see many more stories set in the city.
So do you have a number in mind of how many Mambo Reina books are we talking this Case Garbetta 36 book Patricia Cornwell kind of thing? Are you just going to go with the flow? What do you think?
I don't have a number in mind. As I will just say, as long as people are interested in hearing and seeing more set in the city and more that Mambo Reina can do, then I'm happy to write them.
Yay. Anissa Joy, welcome to the conversation. Your fellow South Carolinian there. She says, hello, Sara and Veronica. Excited to hear about this book and to meet Veronica in Greenville in March.
Oh, nice.
Fabulous. Anissa's an amazing bookstagrammer and book reviewer. She does a lot with friends in fiction. Anissa's such a pleasure to see you pop up. And she has a question for you, Veronica. She wants to know, do you start with setting, characters, or plot? Yeah, walk us through that.
It's actually been different for each book. So this is my third novel. But I will say for the Mambo Reina series, for the Port of Storm, the first thing that came to me was the character. And actually, it was the character of Tika, who is Reina's kind of best friend, kind of mentee, kind of bane of her existence. So she came to me first. And I actually ended up writing a short story about her because I just, I wanted to get to know her better. And I wanted to understand where she came from, what her story was, and what led her to the place in life that we find her in once the story begins. So she came to me first. Again, that trip to New Orleans helped. That gave me the setting. And then I had to find out who my main character was, because Tika is sort of like, she's like Mouse, right, in the Easy Rawlins series. She's not a character that can be your lead, because the story might be over in 2 weeks after she's done something horrible. But I had to then find out who the main character was, and then once I had her, everybody else kind of fell into place.
Ooh, so Tika came to you first, and then wow,
yeah.
So she's going to continue to be, but not the main.
Yeah,
because she can do something crazy.
She will continue to be there. She will continue to make an appearance, but she is, who knows? At some point, maybe we'll learn a little bit more about her.
Ooh, I smell potential. Potential. Well, thank you for the great question, Anissa Joy, and thank you for the great answer, Veronica. Y'all, the book is out tomorrow. Veronica's coming on with this very special pre-launch sneak peek into the foreign exchange, and you can pre-order your copy tonight from our favorite woman-owned independent bookstore, Murder by the Book in Texas. And no matter where you're watching from tonight, Facebook or YouTube, here is that link. You can click and order. And the good folks at Murder by the Book will send that out to you tomorrow so that you too can immerse yourself in New Orleans, Mambo Reina, learn who this Tika is, get your hands on this book and immerse yourself into the story, and then hop on over to Mystery of Thriller Mavens, where we continue the conversation, talking all things reading, books, mysteries, and more. So here is that link. Grab it and order right now, y'all. Let's get back to some of this other praise, Veronica. So I'm going to pop this up from none other than Queen Clark herself. We're going to take a peek at what she had to say. So I'm going to pop it up so we can all read it together. And she said, take a voodoo priestess turned amateur sleuth and a perplexing murder, toss them both in a pot and sprinkle in New Orleans flavor, hot and sultry, then add a big dash of mambo magic, stir, repeat, and bam, you have the Foreign Exchange by Veronica Henry. Mambo Reina Dumond is back. Let the good times roll. That, of course, is from Tracy Clark, two-time winner of the G.P. Putnam's Sons Sue Grafton Memorial Award for her Cass Rains PI series. I love that review. Stir, repeat, and bam. That's my kind of review there. Congratulations on that amazing praise. So let's talk a little bit more about that sprinkle, repeat, magic process that you whipped up there, Veronica. So when you were sprinkling in your magic of the clues, the red herrings, which you said is so challenging to do, did you have to go back and say, you know what, I think we need a few more twists in the first act, or did your editor say, ooh, maybe a little less violence? Like what was that process like?
It was that exactly. It was, there's a clue that I, established in early chapter. But as I wrote on, and the characters inevitably end up taking you in different directions. And I think that's one of the things that, I think a lot of readers may not necessarily understand. You get to a point in the book where it kind of takes on this life of its own, and the characters may go off in a direction that you may not want them to go or may not have anticipated. So you kind of have to write to that and then go back and kind of fix along the way, because writing is editing, right? So I typically try to get through the whole book and get a draft done without going back and editing myself, if I can. But what I do is make notes I use Scrivener. So I make notes in the margin, or I make notes on YouTube. Or I have a notebook that it's always with me. So I make notes there. Hey, in this chapter, make sure you go back and change this or do that. But in that way, I'm able to get through a whole draft. And then what I typically like to do is just sort of make a list of all of those notes that I've made to myself and try to figure out whether or not they make sense. And then kind of put them in some sort of organized spreadsheet, table, whatever is handy, so that I can go back as I start my editing process and kind of fix and knit it all back together along the way.
Ooh, I like that knitting. I knit, so that resonates as
Mhm.
a fellow team scrivener and also a bit of a knitter. I still don't have the garter stitch down, but I do like to knit. And Nita would like to know a little more about this. I want to know too. So, do you lead your characters or do they lead you through this process? She wants to know, is it different at different points in your writing process? Great question, Anissa.
Yeah, it is. You know what? It's both. I think when I first start out, I feel like I'm in total control. I know who these people are. I used to do like these very long character, spreadsheets and outlines and all of that stuff. I think probably the most I'll do now is maybe a journal entry or two just from their perspective. So I figure out who they are. And then I kind of start writing, and I think I'm in total control and I know who they are and I know where I want to go. Only somewhere around that second act, I'm like, I don't know these people at all, and I've got to figure it out along the way. But that's the fun part. It's just like you get to the point where, again, they take on a life of their own. Things that you hadn't thought about or anticipated while you were writing. Great ideas come to mind, and you kind of just got to write them in and roll with it. So it's a process where I think it's a back and forth. At some points it's me, some points it's them, but it all comes together.
I love that. Anissa, thank you for the great question. Veronica, thank you for the great answer. Now, Veronica, your book talks about voodoo, talks about magic, talks about connecting to the elements. So what you're describing as this creative process sounds magical. Does it feel magical to you?
Some days, some some days it feels magical, and some days it feels like torture. Some days the words are just not coming, but it is a magical process, right? Just to have this little seed of an idea, and then to look up 80, 90, 100,000, 110,000 words later, and you have a book that's magic. That's definitely a magical process.
That is magic. Now, Veronica, what do you do on the days when it feels like torture? When, as you said, the words just aren't coming?
Mm-hmm. I force myself. I'm really disciplined and making sure that I'm at my desk, at my keyboard, and I'm there to write. And I have to do that because I'm juggling a day job as well. And I know a lot of writers can empathize with that. So I kind of sit there and I get the words out, and it may only be a paragraph that day. I generally give myself a word count, but I don't always meet it. And if the words aren't coming that day, I get down what I can, and then I come back to, just kind of make my notes and come back to it. There's a point where you can't force it, or what I end up writing are words that are so bad that I end up tossing them all out anyway. So I'd rather stop and think, but I won't allow myself to take away from the time that I'm supposed to be there. Either I'm writing or I'm thinking. So that's it.
And what is your word count? Does it change day by day? Is it 500 words? Is it 1,000 words? Are you going to hit that no matter what, except when you really just, it's going to be crap because you're forcing it, which is also so relatable.
Absolutely. In draft mode, I try to do 1,000 words a day, and that's usually 6 days a week. And when deadline's approaching, then that's 2 a days. That's writing in the morning before work, and then that's writing in the evening after dinner as well.
Are you more of a morning writer, though, in the drafting phase?
I am definitely more of a morning writer. So I get up really early, usually 5:30 or so. I'm up just so I can make sure I get in at least a couple hours. And then if I can squeeze in another hour at the end of the day, I'm good. No, now that's not optimal. I would much rather take it at a bit of a slower pace. But there's a thing called deadlines, right? So sometimes, sometimes what you want does not matter, and you just gotta, get there and get the words in.
I love that. Again, y'all, the book is out tomorrow. Veronica joining us live from South Carolina for this very special pre-launch event. So pre-order tonight. I'm going to pop that link up one more time so that the good folks at Murder by the Book can ship this out to you first thing in the morning when the book drops. And Veronica, I do let people submit questions in advance because not everyone can watch live. Some people got work, got kids to put to bed, so a lot of folks are joining us afterward. And so a few questions submitting in advance. I want to get to those. Someone would like to know what do you do to celebrate finishing a book, and what will you do to celebrate this book coming out tomorrow?
Gosh, that's a good question. Everyone who knows me knows that I'm a really big fan of cupcakes or chocolate. So that will definitely be part of my day tomorrow. That's a good celebration thing. But really, when I finish a first draft, the way that I celebrate the most, aside from a cupcake, is just taking a little time because it's an exhausting process. So even if I take a week off, preferably more, but if I take a week and I don't get up at the crack of dawn and I sleep in a little bit, and I just clear my head, relax, veg out on some TV, do some reading, that's my best way to celebrate. Tomorrow for launch day, I will be nervously biting my nails. I will be checking, see what's going on, answering emails, social media posts, that sort of thing, and generally just trying to enjoy the day.
I love that. Anissa is saying cupcakes and chocolates. I was resonating with that too, Anissa. Thank you for sharing that process. Because Veronica, I think people don't fully know that it's a marathon. I think,
Yes.
a lot of folks had the idea, and I sure had the idea before I started writing, that like you draft it and sure there's going to be some editing and back and forth, but that's not going to be that much and not going to be that hard. And then, you're going to ship it off and it's going to get printed. Little did I know I would be clawing my way through a desert.
That's a good way to put it. I hadn't thought of it that way, but that's a perfect way to put it.
Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for sharing your celebration process with us and your reward process. That vegging out, taking it easy, doing less, sleeping in. What are you watching, or anything you're watching or reading right now that's extra good to reward yourself for that? What are you into?
It's really hard sometimes to read while you're drafting. As you know, for one thing, I don't want stuff to get into my head. And so I want to make sure that that's clear. But if I do read, sometimes I read nonfiction or I read something outside of the genre in which I'm writing. So I am reading an Amy Tan book that's over there. And I'm also reading, and when I say reading, I'm just not getting a whole heck of a lot of it done this week. But I'm reading Silver Sparrow by Tayari Jones.
Ooh, great choices. Great choices. Yeah. All right, y'all, I'm going to post this link one more time. So be sure to, I'm going to pop it up here so we can all check it out together. Grab your copy of The Foreign Exchange right here so that you can immerse yourself into the world of Mambo, Reina, New Orleans, and all the good things. And then let us know what you think of The Foreign Exchange. We can chat about it as you go. So here is that link one more time. No matter where you're watching from, Facebook or YouTube. Now, Veronica, is there a favorite scene, without any spoilers? Was there a favorite scene that you had, that you wrote, or that you love to read in this? Where you're like, this is just a little extra special for me?
There absolutely is. It's toward the end, and I'm going to try not to drop any spoilers. But it's the final battle, shall we say, between Reina and the antagonist, who you'll meet in the opening chapter, whose name's Top Dog. So it's the final battle, and it takes place in Audubon Park. So that was a really, really fun scene to write.
Okay. Is that also your favorite scene to read?
I don't try to read that one because it's just going to give away too much. So one of my favorite scenes to read, though, is actually the opening chapter from the perspective of the antagonist. This is a guy who is so full of himself and and he is so clueless to the fact. I love when I get the opportunity to write from his perspective because he's a lot of fun. So that's one of the things that I like to read the most.
Ooh, yeah. So the opening scene with our antagonist, Top Dog and his colleague Snowman,
Yeah.
is an intense scene. And that's where you start to see his inner battle,
Yes.
and sort of, what he is reckoning with. But then you segue all the way over to the world of college sports. Why did you want to bring that into this mystery?
The interesting thing is all these elements, and when you write a novel, all of these weird elements, these bits and pieces that you've jotted down in your notebook, or if you have a sticky on your monitor, all these things come together at some point, and find their way into your book. So I was watching 60 Minutes, and there was a John Wertheim story about the Africa to NBA pipeline. And I thought, that's definitely something that I'd like to explore a little bit more. And that ended up becoming the whole, impetus for the novel. And that was the mystery, just trying to discover, that was part of it. Now, certainly there's a murder, of course, at the heart of it. But the other half of it was understanding, that whole process and one of the characters that is involved in that and how the whole thing unfolds.
Yeah, because I noticed that you acknowledged and thanked that journalist in your acknowledgments at the end for his excellent reporting, which I've now understand the backstory a little more. Did you reach out to him and let him know that it inspired this book? And what did he say?
Yeah, I absolutely did reach out to him, and because I wanted to hear a little bit more about the story. If you watch 60 Minutes, you'll know that a lot of times those stories are what, 10 minutes long. And
Yeah.
I thought there's a heck of a lot more to this. And I know he's got that story. So I just took a chance and reached out and said, hey, I love this story. I think I want to write about it. I got a story to tell in a novel form. Would you be willing to chat about it? And lo and behold, he writes back and says yes. So he's, obviously does a lot of traveling. So we had to coordinate, when we could talk. But basically, we kind of hopped on the phone and went through the story, some of the things that, didn't necessarily make it onto the screen. And he shared some other resources, that he had found while he was doing his research. So that was just a treasure trove of a conversation, and everything that he shared with me kind of just helped formulate the story.
He must have been very honored that this story, which he, brought forth to so many people who probably didn't know about it at all, then not only informed so many people and enlightened the topic, but he actually inspired you to write a whole book, to bring this huge element into your book. I mean, he must have been so flattered and honored and happy.
I think he was, yes. He seemed very excited that, his story would be the inspiration for a novel. So I hope I did him justice.
Well, I think you did, Veronica, because this book has earned so much amazing praise, and I can't wait for everyone to immerse themselves in the world of foreign exchange in New Orleans and some Mambo magic.
Yes.
We are out of time, y'all. Veronica, thank you so much for coming on Mystery and Thriller Mavens and giving us the inside scoop on the foreign exchange. It has been such a pleasure to host you. Y'all, I'm going to post that link one more time because you got to order this book.
Why not?
And let us know what you think about it. Veronica, congratulations. Happy pub day. Enjoy that cupcake tomorrow.
I shall.
And we will look forward to having you back when your next Mambo book or whatever you write next comes out.
Thank you for having me, Sarah.
All right, y'all, that is a wrap on Mystery Monday. I will see you next Monday with Mr. Walter Mosley coming back year 2 to give us the scoop on his book. And we'll have an Almakatsu as well with Red London. We got a lot to look forward to. So I will see you next Monday. Have a great week.
Thanks, Sarah.